Welcome to Triggers and Spiritual Medicine, a community-built and grassroots-based podcast that addresses the root issues and triggers at the intersection of our health, systems of oppression, and cultural conditioning. Together we explore what truly is ailing us as human beings in today's world. This space is non-commercialized, no advertising dollars are involved because our mission is clear: to dive deep into the heart of our collective struggles and discover the spiritual medicine that can heal us personally, within our families, our communities, and the collective. Each month, we sit down with extraordinary guests who have shared their wisdom and offer at least 3 actionable steps to help you on your journey. This is more than just a conversation, it's a call to action, a chance to tap into the healing tools we all need to move forward as a species. We explore root systems and causes through stories of healing and recovery from addiction, cancer, chronic illness, domestic abuse, and more. We learn from wisdom keepers and lineage holders of sacred traditions, unraveling the mysteries that have survived for millennia, and examining why, in Western societies, we are sicker than ever before. You'll hear stories from people who have used spiritual medicine in their healing journey, whether through meditation, Reiki, expressive arts, yoga, plants, or by unpacking religious indoctrination, persecution, or decolonizing mental constructs. If you believe in our mission, please subscribe and support our podcast by commenting, engaging, and sharing it with others. You can also become a Patreon member to help support our domestic violence community and sacred activist work. Memberships start for free, or you can join for just $5 a month to gain insider information, exclusive content, and more. Whether you're a healer, a seeker, or simply curious, you're just in the right place. So let's journey together. Hi, so we're back. This is Laura from Healing with Spirit, and I'm sitting here with Courtney, who started off actually as a client. So this is the first time I'm actually having a client that we are interviewing today. Courtney's story is short of miraculous and inspirational, and her story, I've been saying, I think for 3 or 4 years, the world needs to hear your story, from everything from being diagnosed at the age of 29 with stage 4 breast cancer. I think you were engaged at the time, right?
After radiation, we got engaged. So
After radiation,
my
yeah.
active treatment.
So getting married, the whole works, and then being told that chances of having children is not in her future, to her triplets just turning a year old. So this is the story. Stay tuned. We're also going to share 3 tips on how to navigate or how to take action steps when you're confronted with something that is life-changing. So Courtney, so please share share your version of what led to us meeting and that whole journey in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. So I moved from where I grew up to my current house, and I was seeing a Reiki practitioner where I moved from, and I was in the market to find someone new and someone fresh and refreshing. So as I started looking online, I found Laura and really embraced everything Laura had to offer. And that's kind of how my journey with Laura began.
And share, because one of the things that I remember very vividly is, I think we may have been working together for about a month at the time, and you had shared one of the things that happened with that other practitioner that was sort of traumatic. Do you mind sharing what happened and how that evolved into also some of the work we did?
Yeah, so I was seeing another practitioner, and a friend of mine was also seeing her, and this practitioner essentially shamed a friend of mine and said that her trauma was not real trauma that she had gone through, and sort of forgot everything that they had discussed prior, and it just left kind of a bad taste in my mouth and in her mouth as well. So it didn't directly happen to me, but it happened to one of my really close friends. And I knew as I was looking for someone to work with, I wanted to find someone that I knew I could trust, because this individual was someone that really made me question, should I continue down like this path of Reiki and utilizing Reiki? And I should say that the Reiki that this woman was doing was kind of the traditional Western Reiki, not Chicken and Reiki, which is what Laura focuses on.
Yeah, and I guess to lead up to even precursor of that, can you kind of take us back to the moment, where you were diagnosed and, you were, I think, 29 at the time with
Hmm.
breast cancer. Can you take us back to that moment and all those triggers that kind of happened and what was happening at the time when you were diagnosed?
Yeah, so I was probably what 28 days after I turned 29. I had a doctor's appointment. I had found a lump. It was painful, so made an appointment with my PCP, sent me to the hospital to go get an ultrasound, a mammogram, and I knew very quickly after my ultrasound and my mammogram that something wasn't right. They asked to do a biopsy right away. After the biopsy, they put me in a separate room, which they typically don't do. And then they had me meet with a surgical oncologist. And they were dancing around the topic of cancer. They said, well, this could be cancer. We want to have you be prepared and we want to set you up with oncology appointments, meet a team. And it was very shocking. I wasn't really expecting that. I thought, hey, I'm 29. I'm just kind of living my best life, working, have a really great boyfriend at the time, and really just not expecting such a life changing conversation to happen. About a couple, I think it was probably like 3 or 4 days later, I did get a phone call confirming that it was breast cancer. Originally, we thought it was stage two, just based off of the biopsy, and then they had me do scans, and the scans then resulted in it being stage four. I had a spot on my sternum, and that is why it was considered stage four. I vividly remember the phone call with my medical oncologist, with him telling me it was stage four, and I went into a panic. I self isolated in my bedroom for 24 hours, trying to figure out, like, holy crap, am I going to die? Like, the survival rate of stage four breast cancer is like 25% of people make it to 5 years. Am I going to be here? What am I going to do? And really spiraled for about 24 hours, and then started finding positive stories online, not necessarily with breast cancer, but other late stage cancers, and said, okay, I'm going to do everything that I can to really fight this and heal my body and survive for a very long time.
But I know from like working with cancer, I mean, that D word, right, always crosses the mind. Can you tell
Mm-hmm.
me, because those that might be experiencing cancer may have just had a diagnosis that might be listening. Can you share like what some of those thoughts you were experiencing early on about that and what was kind of going through your mind?
Yeah, that's what kind of put me into a downward spiral for those first 24 hours, because I was petrified of dying. I didn't want to leave my family, my boyfriend, who is now my husband. I was so scared. I was like, this is it. Like, how am I going to leave these people behind? How am I going? Are they going to be okay without me? I'm so afraid that it's just going to be like the end. Like, there's nothing I can do to prevent dying. And I remember vividly having a conversation with my boyfriend, who's my husband now. I told him he could leave me. I said, you didn't sign up to be with someone who has stage four cancer and is probably going to die. Like, you don't have to stay. And he
Mm.
stayed, and we got engaged after my active treatment. Once I was finished with radiation, we ended up getting engaged. But it was definitely,
And what was his response like?
gosh, it's kind of a blur, but I just know that he was like, no, why would I? I'm not leaving. I'm not walking out on you. I love you so much. I'm not walking out on you. So he's here. We have triplets now. Like, we're living our best life, but like, it was a scary, scary time. And
How many, I mean, I'm wondering like how many people are listening that like we get the, because I mean, I didn't have cancer, but I guess a different type of cancer, right? When you're dealing with trauma. And I did the same thing. Like how many times we push the loved ones away
mhm,
because we're like, it's just weird that we do that, and I
Yeah.
always question, like, why do we do that? Like, these people love us, right?
Right. Yeah.
You
I thought I
know?
was protecting him by saying you can go because I'm like, who wants to end up with someone who potentially most likely is going to die from this disease in the next 5 years based off of statistics?
So, as you move through the cancer treatment and into remission, how long did that process take, by the way?
Probably a year or so, I would say. So I went through 8 rounds of chemo, 25 rounds of radiation, a double mastectomy, and then I was put on like maintenance medicine. And I was getting a scan every 3 months to check the status of my cancer. Um, 3 months after all of my active treatment, I had dying cancer cells still in my sternum. And then by the next 6 months after that was when they officially said I had no evidence of disease, active disease. So for 5 years now, I have had no evidence of disease.
Yay!
Yeah.
So, moving through that, because going through the time from the time, you were given the diagnosis, right? To, like, I know all the changes you made,
Mhm.
and I know how difficult and some really big, and I'll be honest with you. I remember thinking to myself, she needs to change her job. She needs to change her job. But I couldn't tell you because
Yeah.
I'm like, she's just gonna have to sort that piece on her own. And you did, but can you share with us, like, what moving through this part of the journey when you were going through the treatments, and what were some of the additional bigger shifts or changes that you made in your life?
Okay, so I think the easy ones for me, because they were more tactile, was cutting out certain toxic products. So anything that had a fragrance, a synthetic fragrance in it, or anything that was more toxic. So I changed my whole like skincare routine, the products I was using on myself. That one was easier, I should say. And then during active treatment, I actually went straight vegan, which was very challenging. But I knew that I needed to make a big change. I cut out alcohol, went straight vegan, and now that I'm kind of in this no evidence of disease, everything is more in moderation. So I do eat meat every once in a while. I will have an alcoholic drink every once in a while, but it's definitely more in moderation. And those two, I think, were probably the easiest for me. The ones that I really needed that push from Laura and working with Laura was overcoming my fear of dying. That was a huge one. And I think that was probably one of the biggest things that was holding me back, along with mitigating a lot of stress and using different tactics to help with stressful situations. My background for work is in finance, specifically in the startup world. So I'm used to working 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, and it just is a very stressful environment. And this past October timeframe, it's been a blessing. There was a reduction in workforce at my last company. I was part of the reduction in workforce, and now I'm working part time, and it has been a much, much better situation for myself because I can focus on raising my kids, working on myself, healing, and also using my brain in a different capacity from a work standpoint. And it's been very nice, and I'm learning, oh, this is what a normal work life should be like. It shouldn't be as stressful as I was experiencing. So I think mitigating that stress has been a huge positive impact in my life the last 8 or so months.
Well, I know, and of course, you know that usually when I have a client that gets the cancer diagnosis, I typically will ask them the death question,
Mm-hmm.
because one of the things that I find that is the biggest obstacle in actually healing and recovery is that death card. Because then every decision you're making, you're being made from a high cortisol, high stress, high fear of, I'm doing this because I don't want to die, versus when you make peace with death,
Mm-hmm.
there's a certain calmness that happens where it invites healing
Mm-hmm.
because your stress hormones aren't in overwhelm. Can you possibly describe some of the process you felt like you went through in going through that process of making peace?
Yeah, I think that was very hard. And I think the biggest thing for me was not necessarily me dying. I was like, oh, if I die, I die. It was more so the fear of leaving my loved ones behind. And I think it was very hard to work through that. And I think having conversations with my husband, being very open, really working with Laura on different ways to like process this feeling, whether it be utilizing some of the Jik and Reiki practices, utilizing different just different tactics to finally come to terms with like, if I die, it's okay. Everyone that I leave behind, like I'm still going to be here for them. I'm still going to show them signs that I'm here, but I'm just not physically here. And I think that was probably the hardest thing that I had to overcome. And like, I think the big thing, because this was before I had the triplets, was having that conversation with Sean, being like, are you going to be okay if I die? Like, are we going to be like, this is scary. Like, this is scary for me. I'm worried about you, not necessarily me. Like, are you okay? Are you going to be okay? And really having an open, honest conversation, I think helped move me further along in that journey than anything else.
Yeah, because I mean, even, they say that depending on the type of cancer you have, it can, when you get pregnant, it either can make you better or it could also ignite, right? And even going through those thoughts and making peace that, taking that next step and working to become pregnant. And then what if that was the catalyst that ignited the cancer growth again?
Yeah.
And then how do we make peace with that part of ourselves, right? Like how, because it's like this dichotomy, this duality of, because what I've learned is like when we make peace with it, it doesn't control us. It doesn't run like the operating system. We're not running from a place of fear anymore, right? And I think, kind of walk me through of like how you move from a place of fear to a path of faith or confidence
Yeah, I
or
think
trust.
I
All those things, right?
seriously. So my cancer is hormone driven. So there was a high probability that if I got pregnant, my cancer would come back because it was estrogen and progesterone dominant. And when you get pregnant, your estrogen goes through the roof. So that was there was a high likelihood that it potentially could come back. And I think once I had that conversation with Sean, I felt at peace. I felt, you know what, we're going to do this. We're going to see what happens. I am trusting that whatever the universe wants me to do, whatever path I'm supposed to be on, I will be on. And if my cancer comes back, we'll tackle it. We'll figure it out. If my cancer doesn't come back, awesome. And I'll be able to be here raising the children, everything like that. But I think really coming to terms and accepting, like, if I die, I die. Like, I want to live my life. I don't want to be in fear of dying. And I think that was the big thing for me. Like, moving past that fear and just coming to acceptance. It was like, okay, my cancer could come back. Yes, don't get me wrong, the anxiety creeps in when I'm coming up towards my appointments. It's like, oh, are my tumor markers going to be high? Is anything going to pop on my scans that I have? But I think that's natural for everybody, but it's not something that I live in fear every day.
Yeah, and then you've also learned tools to mitigate when those anxieties or fears come. You've learned tools, right?
Absolutely.
So what has the cancer taught you?
Oh, I think the cancer has really taught me to trust my intuition, trust my body, listen, pause is a huge one. Just pause, listen, and also live my life not in fear. Try to be present in the moment. I don't think that I was present necessarily. It was always like, what's next? What's next? What's the next big thing that I can accomplish, that I can do? How do I continue to grow my career, climb this ladder?
Classic American lifestyle.
Exactly.
Right?
Like, what's next? Like, almost like overindulging. And now I am trying to just be in the present and live every day is a new day and just kind of figure out what's next, what makes me happy, and just focus on that, not what's next, because I think that's where my brain was pre-cancer.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just speak to the whole American culture and why probably we are the most expensive healthcare system. And I write about this in this book here, the Secrets to Healing book, but how we have the most expensive healthcare system in the world, but yet our healing outcomes, the death ratios, the cancer rates are, we have one of the worst. I think we're rated like number 15 in
Hmm.
the world. At least the last time I checked, it was like number 15 as far as, us getting sick and how we get better. It's not good, right?
Hmm.
And part of that is we have been severed from our own spirit in this country. And I've always said corporate America has, and the prison system are the two forms that seem to be like modern day slavery, right?
Hmm.
Or indentured servitude, and we lack the spirit, we lack that time, we lack the time in nature. So what have you found to be, if you look at old Courtney
Hmm.
and you look at Courtney today, who was she then versus who is she today?
Oh, we're two totally different people. I feel like there's a pre-cancer Courtney and a post-cancer Courtney. Pre-cancer Courtney was really, like I said, overindulging, whether it be going out to eat and having these great foods or living this like grandiose lifestyle, really like leaning into that corporate environment. Like, what's the American picture of like how you climb the ladder? And now it's more, okay, how do I just stay present? How can I get outside? What can I do? In with my gardens, really big into gardening. How can I spend great quality family time and focusing on that and being with the people I love and surrounded by the people I love, and a lot of like the toxic behaviors and the toxic friendships I've really kind of severed and really just changed my whole outlook. And I would also say that I'm a lot calmer. I'm a lot let things roll off my back. Before I was very high strung, very probably in that fight or flight mode for most of my adulthood up until I got cancer, because I was in such a stressful work environment that it was just go 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 go. And now I just am trying to stay as calm and as present as possible. So it's definitely two different Courtneys.
So that kind of speaks to also, how did boundaries come in,
Mhm.
the healing part of your journey?
Yeah, I find the boundaries are very important. Before, I really didn't have any boundaries. I would kind of, especially with work, you need me to work at 11 o'clock at night? Sure, I'll stay on the phone until 1 a.m. It's fine. And I didn't have that no, and I couldn't exercise that no, and I didn't know how to exercise the no. And really, that people pleaser was part of like ingrained into who I was or even am. It's still something that I try to overcome, but putting in boundaries from a work standpoint and really putting in boundaries to remove like toxic behavior that it surrounds me, and just kind of learning to exercise my no has been very, very huge for me, because I don't think I knew how to do it before I really met you. Like, I didn't have the tools to just be like, no, no is a complete sentence. Like, I didn't have that ability.
Yeah, and can you give us maybe a story or something that kind of elaborated that really was profound on really witnessing how important those boundaries came to play?
You're putting me on the spot.
Sorry.
Let me see if I can think of something. So when I was pregnant, this is actually a really good one. When I was pregnant, at my last job, I was about to go out on maternity leave. Mind you, triplets, I was very big, very uncomfortable. I went out on leave very, very early. I had the babies at 34 weeks, so it was early. And I think I was out on leave 4 weeks before that. And work wanted to give me, originally, we had agreed on like, here are two things that I need to deliver, and that's about it. And then the week before I was going out on leave, like 8 new things were put on my plate, and I had to have that conversation with my manager, and it was very challenging for me because exercising my no is still challenging. But I knew, for the health of myself, for the babies, for my well-being, I had to put that boundary in place and say, hey, I know you want all this work done, but I can't do this. I'm not doing this for you. Here are my boundaries. Like, here are the things I can commit to, and unfortunately I can't do all of this. And it was very challenging to do. I struggle sometimes with hard conversations, but it was probably the best thing that I could have done for myself to make sure that the end of my pregnancy was as stress-free as possible
And
because it
how,
was stressful.
and how did making that decision to have that difficult conversation, how did that translate into how you were caring for yourself? Like what was showing up for you at the time?
I was very anxious when I had that conversation, but the moment that that conversation was over, I was so proud of myself that I put myself first and not work first or something else first or making sure that everything was buttoned up. It was more so like, what is best for me? And I have a hard time doing or focusing on like me as a number one. And at this point in time, I knew I had to, and it was very rewarding. And I felt so much proud, like I was so proud of myself for doing it because it's such
So
a
was
hard,
I.
yeah, it's such a hard thing for me to
And by the
do.
way, I'll add, this is Courtney's first time doing something like this.
Yeah.
So please leave some comments and some beautiful cheers of, she's very private, she's very quiet. And so the fact that she's actually taking this step to be here is huge. And I'm so proud of her for doing that. But her story, and it goes, let's just transition into the babies now.
Yeah.
So, one of the stories that I remember that was pretty profound is like, what you have even shared is like when babies, especially when you have multiples, you're given like added like therapies and things like that because they're considered preemies, right? But one of the stories that really hits me is that, and I can really attest to the work that she's done, and she's really being humble and modest at really the depth and level of work she has done, but that they actually stopped the services earlier because they're doing too well. Can you share what that was like? And
Yeah, about, gosh, a month and a half or so ago. So, because my children were preemies, they were given an occupational therapist to help with crawling, walking, just eating, like you're hitting your normal milestones as an infant. And about 6 weeks ago, our case manager came to the house with our lead occupational therapist, and she was like, "Oh, your daughter is walking across the room, and your son is starting to walk, and your other daughter has taken a few steps. We're going to discharge you from the program because other babies need our help, and yours are doing this before they're even one, which babies that are not preemies typically don't do before they're one. So they're hitting their milestones faster than anticipated. So you are no longer able to be in our program. But if you need us and they're not speaking at whatever age, just call us. We'll come back." But for their 1 year, I mean, they've hit all of their milestones a lot faster than babies that are 40 weeks old.
yeah, they're so cute. Can you share? I'm not even going to backtrack again. I keep going
Yeah.
these backtracks. But can you share just the whole idea of what it was like? As I remember the first time when you said, "Laura, we're going to do this."
Yeah.
And I remember when you came into the office and they tried the implant the first time and it didn't take. Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah, so I had to go through a round of IVF, and it wasn't necessarily that the implant didn't take. They stopped us from doing it because my body wasn't reacting the way that it was supposed to the medicine, so they couldn't even do a transfer. And I remember I was so defeated at first. I was like, "Oh, we've waited so long. This is so frustrating." And we had such a great session that session. And you were giving reassurance, like it's going to happen, like you are meant to be a mother. And the next session, IVF round, I'm pregnant with triplets. So
Yeah.
it was a journey. Like it was such a journey, and it was,
I think there was a past life connection tied to it too,
yeah, I
right?
think
So
so
we did some
too.
past life
Yeah,
healing
yeah,
and
we did some healing.
yeah. But I remember having the Freudian slip going, I think it was June, because I remember
Yeah, it
saying,
was June.
and I said, "Yeah, but it's not going to happen now. It's going to happen September."
Uh-huh.
And I think I had a Freudian slip saying multiples. And in my mind, I'm thinking twins,
Oh my God, yeah.
not triplets.
Yeah.
And when she came to me and said, "But Laura, it's triplets."
Yeah, oh yeah.
Can you walk us through, by the way, that whole part of like that journey from getting pregnant to all the emotions and all the things that medical advice happen?
Yeah.
Understanding like we are all in this whole issue, even with abortion and all this other stuff that's happening in this
Yeah.
country, but all the things that were happening, all the recommendations, and how you were able to move through each of these decisions based on what you're learning by All the skill sets, by the way, that Courtney has been learning has been associated with learning to trust the wisdom of the body. So giving the body a voice and learning that language, and then learning to marriage that as part of our healing path. But can you share, because I remember there was like all this ups and downs and all
Yeah.
these things that happened in between.
Yeah, so I guess I can start from getting my cancer diagnosis. They actually told me that there was a very minimal, if any, chance that I would get pregnant naturally, that I would be able to carry a baby. We weren't able to retrieve eggs, create embryos pre-chemo, and then post-chemo. A lot of people don't have viable eggs or embryos that they can create. So that was kind of where it started. And I remember actually the first phone call when they did say it was cancer, I was like, wait, but I can still be a mom, right? So it was just like in me that I was like, I need to be a mom. Like, this is not going to stop me. I'm going to be a mom. We ended up a year after I was in this no evidence of disease remission. We ended up retrieving eggs, created embryos. I ended up getting, I think, 5 or 6 embryos, which they were like, wait, this usually doesn't happen. People are lucky if they have one embryo post chemo, because chemo essentially kills your eggs. For me, it didn't. And then we were actually headed down the path of surrogacy or gestational carrier, because my doctor wasn't recommending that I would carry, because they didn't know, would the hormones spike, would your cancer come back? It's not that safe. We don't have a case like you, so we can't tell you what's going to happen. They'll let people who are early stage breast cancer, yeah, sure, they can do it, but someone that is considered stage 4, we've never had this situation. We don't let them carry. This is something new, so we're recommending surrogacy, gestational carrier. So we went through the whole process of finding a gestational carrier. It ended up falling through, and I remember having a conversation with you, and I was like, I'm just going to do it. Should I just ask him if I can carry? What should I do? I don't know, because it happened probably a week. The gestational carrier fell through probably a week or 2 weeks before my 3 month
That was like
appointment.
January, February.
Yeah, it's my 3 month appointment, and I was like, can I just do it? And my oncologist was like, I never thought of that. So he took some time to think it through. And then in January, February timeframe, he was like, yeah, why don't you try it? He was like, what's the worst that can happen? He was like, you are a unique case to us. Like, we don't have anyone like you. So yeah, let's go for it. And then we ended up doing a transfer that the end of August, found out I was pregnant in September, which Laura was like, oh no, it's going to happen in September. Find out I'm pregnant in September. We had our first ultrasound, and it was 3 babies. And I remember looking at my husband and being like, what? What is this? What do you mean? And he looked at me and he goes, we can't
Talk about wishful thinking.
He's like, we can't even come up with one name. How are we going to come up with 3 names? This is vividly what I remember him saying.
Yeah.
And then I took the day off from work because I was like, this is crazy. And then we had to go meet with a maternal fetal medicine doctor, and they actually recommended that we reduce our pregnancy to twins instead of triplets, because not only because I'm a cancer survivor, but triplets, there's a higher rate of issues that could come up. And I remember it was
a very difficult time.
It was. I was going back and forth. I'm like, okay, we reduce. But how do we pick who we reduce? Is it better for me to reduce, but I don't want to reduce? And it was just like a yo-yo back and forth.
And what do you think helped you? What were some of the things that you were doing to process, to make those decisions to keep the babies, all 3 of them?
So
some of the tools that you were.
So I was using a lot of journaling at the time. I was kind of sitting, pausing, reflecting, like, is it my fear that's saying, do we reduce? Is it not my fear? Like, why am I flip-flopping? Like, I really went in deep inside to my body to be like, what, like, and just trusting what was going on and really trying to figure out like why I was flip-flopping. And I think a lot of it was just fear. Like, I think how do you take care of 3 kids at once? How do you feed 3 babies? It was just the logistics. Like, babies are expensive. How do you feed them? At the same time, changing diapers, just like everything just felt so overwhelming. And I kept saying to my husband, I'm like, okay, we have a scan coming up. If they're all healthy, then we'll wait till the next scan and we'll make a decision. All 3 of them were healthy. and then they were like, and then I asked, how do you decide which one to reduce? And they were like, oh, well, because all three of them look healthy, we'll reduce the one that's like the highest up. And now I sit back and reflect and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that was even a question in my head, that like this dog, like she wouldn't be here if we went through with that. So it was a lot of yo-yoing and just like trusting my body and really just like digging into my fear of why I was feeling that way. And a lot of it was just like, I was in my logistic brain of like, okay, it's a lot. Three babies is a lot.
So basically, you were tapping into that wisdom of your own body,
Mm-hmm.
listening to its own wisdom, and it's saying whether or not to keep or to have to deduce, right? So,
Right. Yeah.
and, what, yeah, I'm just sitting there reflecting as I remember all of that what you went through back then, and, between what to do, what not to do. And I'll give you credit, like your ability to listen to your body and to trust. I remember when you first started coming like 4 years ago or so, and or 5 years I think now,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like your ability to trust wasn't there.
No.
And your ability to be able to ask your body a question now and ask for its yes or no, and you go, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you can do that now.
Mm-hmm.
How empowering is that?
It is, and I don't think I give myself enough credit that I can do that, because it just seems so natural to me to just be like, oh, here we go. Yes or no, let's ask the body. And it really gives me that freedom to say, okay, my body knows what's right for me, so I just need to trust it.
Can you explain to people that might be facing something, whether it's cancer or long term or any kind of crisis,
Mm-hmm.
why that in itself is an important skill to learn?
I think without that skill, at least for me, I was always in my head. I went to like the logic. I was like, okay, well, logically, this is how I need to think. And I was separating my body and my mind. And to be able to connect them as one has been very empowering for myself, because I can just take a moment, and it's hard, don't get me wrong, it's still hard, but I can take that pause and I can say, okay, let's get out of my logic. Let's get into my body and say, is this right for me? Does this feel right to me? Instead of being like, oh, okay, here are the list of things that why this wouldn't work or why this would work. And that was probably the hardest for me, because I am a very logic thinker, very logic thinker.
I also remember having conversations, of, and I'm just having a brain fart. I'm having a brain fart moment, people. I'm having one of those days. It is a full moon. We're recording this on a full moon in Scorpio, so bear with us. um, and I forget where I was going to go. Boom, forgot. But that whole part of that identity shift. Can you describe how that looks like, that identity shift of not only cancer, but a young mom and all of who Courtney was to who she is? I mean, I think we've had conversations about, how cancer kind of prepared you for this. Can
Mm-hmm.
you share, like, it's kind of a weird statement to say, right?
Yeah.
Of how this cancer journey actually prepared you, and even some of the comments people were making to you while you were pregnant, and they were like, how are you doing this and how are you doing that? And can you share some of those stories
Yeah,
and reflections?
I think cancer really gave me, this is going to sound crazy, but it was almost a blessing in a sense, because it allowed me to really work on myself and heal myself and get to know me, and not, and me as my body and my soul, like everything connected, and not just kind of Courtney, professional Courtney, really, because that was my identity before. It was like, okay, Courtney is this person, like this is what it is. Whereas now it's like, okay, everything is really connected. I'm connected to my soul and my brain, my body, everything is just connected. And cancer, I think, has given me the ability to work towards that and heal that, and really working with Laura and other areas too that I've been focusing on, like acupuncture and really the journaling. A lot of that stuff has given me the ability to be like, okay, we're just gonna run with it now, and that's what we're doing with the triplets. It's hard, don't get me wrong. My pregnancy was hard, but even the doctors were like, "Wait, you're not sick. You're like moving. You're going to probably give birth at 30 weeks. I gave birth at 34 and a half weeks. I wasn't put on bed rest. And I think a lot of it was like working with Laura, getting Jikiden Reiki every week. Just being,
Can you explain that role that Reiki played in your life?
yeah. So I think that Reiki has been able to kind of help me process different areas that might have like a toxic burden to them. Like we worked a lot on like my liver, for example, because cancer, chemo, liver, like really just working on the like physically like that aspect of Reiki. But then there's a whole like Jikiden Reiki, but there's a whole like mindset behind it that has been integrated before I learned it. So I now know how to give Jikiden Reiki, but prior to that, I didn't realize Laura was teaching me everything behind it without telling me what was really going on, if that makes
It all
sense.
goes in this book,
Yeah.
people. The Secrets to Healing. It's the one
Yeah.
thing that a lot of Western Reiki teachers miss is the foundation of Reiki, the five basic principles, and how to really integrate them into your daily life, right? And you did talk a lot about presence, right? That's Kyo
Mm-hmm.
Dakiwa, and then how do you address your anger and your fears, your worries, right? That's Ikaro na Shinpai Su na Kancha Ste Kyo Hagame Itone Shinsatsumi, right? So it's just for today. Do not anger. Do not worry. Be grateful. Do your duties fully, right? Because that's all. Like
Mm-hmm.
she had to do her duties fully. It's like how are you living your life in the most healthy way? How are you being the best student in this whole cancer journey? And everything, as I remember you even coming in saying, yeah, everybody at the holiday parties was like wondering how I'm so calm,
Mm-hmm.
being pregnant with triplets and working full time, a crazy job, and coming home and still doing this and that. And everybody's wondering how I'm so calm. And I said, if you just said it's because you're actually walking your talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You actually walk your talk. You just
I
don't
try
talk.
to. I
You
try
you
to.
you 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 challenge yourself on like not talking much, which is why you're here.
Yeah.
But that's okay. What is going there? What led you? Because I know I have been saying your story is so profound
Yeah.
that the world needs to hear you. So what finally was like the aha moment where you said, you know what? Yeah, I'm finally going to start that TikTok channel. And yeah, I'll come on the podcast and share my journey. This is like really the infancy. You guys are getting like the infancy
Yeah.
of Courtney finally having the courage to come out and take this next step because of her story.
I think a lot of it is like what's happening in the world collectively. Like I think everything is so heavy, so burdensome on a lot of people, and this is just like an area of positivity that I feel like I can potentially share and maybe give someone a glimmer of hope that positive things can come out of something negative that's happening or
Mhm.
something viewed as negative. Um, Definitely in my infancy, but I'm trying to put my voice out there. And I know my story is definitely very different than a lot of other people's. And if I can help one person, two people, however many people, I think that's potentially what I'm put on like earth to be able to do.
And what do you see as different compared to what you see like when you read stories online about, I mean, of course, besides the death thing, like, right?
Hmm.
But like, what do you see as different? What makes your story so unique?
I think it's because I challenge myself. I hold myself accountable to actually do the work and walk the talk the walk the talk, whatever the saying is. Um, but actually do that where a lot, and I don't stay in that. And I don't want to say that I bypass through the hard stuff, but I think it's like I'm able to.
Or if you do, you catch yourself and you
Exactly.
move it.
I'll catch myself. Like for example, I had an oncology appointment last week, 2 weeks ago, and I was definitely really anxious for it. But I was like, okay, let's feel what we're feeling and be able to move through it. Where I don't think that a lot of people are able to do that and are able to do it in the way that I am. So I think that's why it's different. It's like I always see the world as half a glass half full, not half empty. And I think specifically with cancer, a lot of people go into that like victim mentality, and I don't view cancer as something bad. I view it as more of a positive thing that has led me to marrying my best friend, having triplets, being able to
All during the pandemic, by the way, too,
Yeah, yeah,
on top of it.
and be able to really create like this core group of people that really support me, and I think that that is not what I see a lot of other people who have gone through kind of this journey.
And you mentioned earlier that you learned Jikun and Reiki. What made you finally wanting to say, you know what? Yeah, I've been receiving for 4 or 5 years, but now I actually want to learn Reiki.
The little ones, my three little ones. So I have a son who's a crazy little boy, and he's going to be my anything weird can happen will happen to him. So it's just once he get this eye thing, and I was like, oh, Jikun and Reiki could really help with this. Like anything that I can do to help make their lives a little bit easier.
And what have you seen where the benefits in working with them?
Yeah, so my daughter, one of my daughters, was a very spitty baby, and I was able to work on her stomach a lot and really help her not have as much reflux issues. And my son had a seizure, and like just working with him and helping him kind of process that. And I've seen like they're super happy babies. They started sleeping through the night at what, 5-ish months or so.
I remember when I first met them, and
Yeah, they slept so well. Slept so well.
well, yeah, explain that visit.
Yeah, so Laura came to meet them for the first or second time, and she kind of held each one of them. And they weren't awful sleepers, but they were not sleeping through the night. And I remember the next day I sent a message to Laura, and I was like, well, the baby slept through their night for the first time. And she was like, hi. Hi. I did Jikun and Reiki on them while like I was holding them. And they just slept through the night. So it's really, I think learning, I want to ingrain this into them. Like this is how we should kind of operate. Like our mindset should be kind of based on the Jikun and Reiki principles.
And teach them how to stay present,
Exactly.
Teaching them how to deal with their anger, teaching them how to work with their worries, teaching them how to live a life of gratitude,
Absolutely.
teaching them how to be personally accountable and responsible and do your duties fully, and to be kind to others. Because you can't be kind to others if you're not the other four, right?
Exactly.
And that's kind of what this book kind of goes into for those who are interested, by the way. The Secrets to Healing, if you're just listening and not watching. Share 3 tips that you think somebody who might be struggling right now, whether it's cancer or some major life crisis, that they can do today. What are some of the top 3 things that you feel that they could do today that you felt beneficial?
Definitely getting outside, going for a walk in nature. Like I feel like being able to connect and get the fresh air and really just like be present on that walk. Like, oh, there's a bird. What kind of bird is it? Like, what does it look like? Or are you able to just notice something you didn't notice before? Like put your phone away, like don't have your phone out, like just really be present and taking a walk.
That is a problem. Like even in the city, it's like, see people, they're walking like this with their head down on their phone, and they have no awareness of anything around them. And yeah, the whole paying attention to what's around you.
Yeah, I think it's so important. Journaling, I think, is something that anyone can really do. It doesn't matter what you journal, just pick up a piece of paper in the morning, just write down your thoughts. If you had a dream, just write down, even if it's like, I want to do XYZ today, or whatever you're feeling, just like write it down before, when you wake up or before bed. I think that's really helpful. And I think the other one is just really taking a step back and like giving yourself 5 minutes to like breathe and like find what you're grateful for, or what makes you happy, and just taking that like time to yourself and just like sitting with like, okay, this is how the day went. This is just any positives, any negatives, like how to go, and just like have a debrief with yourself to think like, okay, this is how the day went. Because I don't think a lot of people, at least when I would come home from work, it was like, okay, work, cook dinner, scroll on my phone, watch TV, whatever it is, but like go to bed. But it's
There's
like
no mindful kind of integration.
Exactly. So like having that moment to just pause and like, okay, let's have a check-in with ourselves. How'd the day go?
Yes, very much so. And I can't wait. Please stay tuned to the website because I'll probably put the links when she does have them available. on the website, www.laurahealingwithspirit.com, under the podcast, this episode. And for when she does have like the TikTok and everything else up and running. But please leave comments and feedback for Courtney, because I'm really proud of her for taking this next step.
Thank you.
This has been, because she has so much medicine, and I've seen and witnessed the growth, and she barely scratched the surface to really how deep and how dedicated she was. And I think the other piece we really didn't talk about was judgment. Was really working with judgment and trying not to judge the situation, the person, and all those things, but still allow yourself the place to feel, right? And to move through. But yeah, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad. Yay! So until next time on Triggers and Spiritual Medicine, have a good day, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Triggers and Spiritual Medicine. We hope today's episode provided insights and action steps to support you on your personal journey. Remember, healing is a continuous process, and by addressing what triggers us, we create space for deeper transformation. If you would like to dive deeper into our community and support our sacred activist work, join us on Patreon, where you'll find more resources and insider content to empower your healing path. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. And please share, like, and engage with us to help boost our algorithm status. Since this is a community-driven podcast, your support truly makes a difference in helping us reach more souls who can benefit from this journey. Stay connected, stay mindful, and keep doing the inner work. Together, we are building a community that uplifts and heals. And until next time, stay grounded and take care of your soul.